let me introduce Vice Provost of Global and Local Affairs, Dr. Roberta Espinosa, who is going to welcome the Consul General, Honorable Ioannis Stamatekos, to our event today.
Thank you so much, Catalina. I hope everyone can hear. Is that fine?
Yes.
Great. On behalf of President Snyder, Provost Poon, and Dean Crabtree, I would like to welcome the Honorable Stamatekos back to LMU's campus. We are honored to host you for the second time, or more, who's counting, on LMU's campus. We met last November at another event centered around modern Greek studies. So this is quite wonderful. So welcome back, and I feel this event strongly demonstrates and illustrates LMU's existing strong connection to Greece. And it is a relationship we greatly value and intend to continue to nurture in the coming years. There is no doubt that our faculty, staff, and students greatly benefit in a variety of different ways from our many interactions and collaborations with Greece. We, for example, have 2 study abroad programs in Greece. A summer program in Spetsis that starts in Athens. And in fall 2024, we are thrilled to announce that we'll be launching a semester program in Athens through College Year in Athens, CYA. It is exactly these types of significant and transformational partnerships that reflect LMU's institutional commitment to comprehensive internationalization and global learning for all. And that advances the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which are a framework that we have adopted here at LMU for all global engagements and global learning. To me, it also aligns perfectly with the mission of Global Local Affairs, GLA. GLA's mission is to promote the understanding about the world and support global local engagement that facilitates knowledge, skills, attitudes, and experiences to become globally responsible citizens, equipped to respond to a world in need of ethical and creative problem solvers. We aim to cultivate intellectual curiosity and cross-cultural understanding that builds bridges across and within global local divides. We seek to foster a forward-thinking community that pursues global local knowledge, embraces inclusion, inspires creativity, and promotes social justice to create the world we want to live in, to quote the president. Honorable Stamatekos, we look forward to your presentation on Greece's role in Eastern Mediterranean. And as a proud lifelong learner myself, I look forward to your perspective and insight on this extremely important topic. Thank you and welcome again.
Dear Greek Consul Ioannis Stamatekos, dear guests, it is an honor to welcome you to the opening 2023 event for the Classics in Archaeology Learning Community Series, made possible through the Engaged Learning Fund awarded by the Dean's Office of the Bellarmine College of Liberal Arts. Today's event is co-sponsored with the Office of the Vice Provost for Global Local Affairs, Dr. Roberta Espinosa, the Director of the Global Policy Institute, Dr. Gabriele Magni, the Director of International Relations, Dr. Ferial Sharif. Let me introduce our distinguished guest. The Greek Consul General, the Honorable Ioannis Stamatekos, was born in Athens. He studied political science and international relations at Boston University, and then international relations and international economics at the School of Advanced International Studies at the Johns Hopkins University in Washington, D.C. In January 2004, he joined the Hellenic Foreign Service. Since then, he has served in Tripoli, Libya, as Deputy Head of Mission, and later as Chargé d'Affaires at the Embassy of Greece. He served as Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy of Greece in Budapest, Hungary, and as Consul General of Greece in Houston. In Athens, he served as Deputy Director of the Diplomatic Cabinet of the Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, and later under the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Let me acknowledge my students and co-panelists today. So my name is Katerina Zakaria. I'm a professor of classics and the chair of classics and archaeology here at LMU. The event today is scheduled at the same time as my interdisciplinary connections course on representations of Greece, ancient and modern. So all my students are here. I created this course following the misrepresentations of contemporary affairs in Greece during the devastating financial crisis of 2008 to 18, and set out to explore how stereotypes in media are linked to contextual negotiations of identity, capitalizing on the work I've done on Greek ethnic identity formation and cultural politics, and introducing students to the cultural theories of Stuart Hall, Edward Said, and Michel Foucault, among others. Students select their research topics for the course from the Los Angeles Greek Film Festival film submissions, our 10-year-long community partner, and publish a blog on their selected films and interviews. So many here hope to interview the Greek Consul General and his office. Let me introduce now my co-panelist. Dr. Feri Al-Sharif is the Director of International Relations. Her research examines questions in human rights, women's rights, and Middle Eastern politics. Today, she has brought her Politics of the Middle East course, which is interested in learning more about how political changes in Turkey are leading to new foreign policies in the Eastern Mediterranean. Dr. Gabriele Magni is the director of the Global Politics Institute. His research and teaching focus on European politics, immigration, and LGBTQ politics. Some students from his European politics class are here today. The class explores several topics that have been important in Greece in recent years, including the Eurozone crisis, the refugee crisis, and the rise of populism. The Greek Consul General will present for about 15-20 minutes on topics including Greece's economic turnaround, populism and the real dividing line in Western diplomacies, immigration and the Greek experience, Ukraine and energy security, relations with democratically backsliding Turkey. So as I mentioned, the presentation will be followed by Q&A. So let me welcome our Consul General. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the very kind introduction. It is really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you at Loyola Marymount University for this event, and it is a special honor to see so many students attending this event. I'm really honored to be amongst you because today is the day that I would like to have a very frank and sincere discussion with you. I will give an overview, I will give a context of our discussion, but I'm more interested in hear your questions and try to reply to your questions than to just give a lecture. So let me start by thanking very much the Vice Provost, of course, Dr. Katerina Zacharia and the other professors that are involved in organizing today's event, and to express also my high appreciation to the leadership of the university for its hospitality, but more importantly for its interest in Greece and in Greek affairs. I have to mention the excellent cooperation that the consulate is having throughout the years with LMU through the Kalogeras Center for Modern Greek Studies, and I see that its director, Dr. Boudano, is here with us today, so I welcome her as well. So, if we had this event a couple of years ago and Dr. Zacharia spoke about stereotypes, the discussion would be on how Greece was going to bring Europe down, how Greece would bring the euro down. Greece was really seen as a kind of sick man of Europe. But today the story is very different. Greece has experienced an economic transformation. It has restored a high growth trajectory by implementing common sense reforms, lowering the tax base and making the country more attractive for foreign direct investment, digitizing its economy and the bureaucracy and reducing red tape. So Greece is no longer the sick man of Europe, and despite dire circumstances all around the world, like the pandemic crisis and now the war, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Greek economy presents many opportunities. It is actually leading economic growth in the Eurozone with 8.4% in 2021 and 5.6% in 2022, and an expectation of a growth close to 2% in 2023, despite that all forecasts say that the Eurozone is actually going to be in a recession. Moreover, the Greek-American relations are at an all-time high, with strong cooperation on many different sectors, including defense and energy. The relationship between Greece and the United States has been based always on values. After all, the two countries have always been on the same side of history. We are together because we share the same principles, and by fighting for the same values, we share the same interests. Greece is, along with Israel, the strongest US ally in the volatile region of Eastern Mediterranean. So turning to our topic, that is Greece's role in the Eastern Mediterranean, let's start by giving some context on what we mean by Eastern Mediterranean region. In a strict interpretation of geography, the Eastern Mediterranean starts from the western coast of Libya all the way up to Turkey, including, of course, the northern and southern shores of the Mediterranean. Politically, economically, and socially, this region is much bigger, because what happens in this region affects and is affected by a much bigger region which starts from the Arab Gulf all the way to the Caucasus and the Balkans. Many times we read in the press about crisis in Libya, crisis in Cyprus, crisis in Lebanon, crisis in the Palestinian territories. All these crises are interconnected, and we have to treat the region as a whole. So what characterizes this region? Why is this region so special and so influential in the world politics? Not now, it has been forever like that. An area where three continents meet with whatever this entails. Three continents with different cultures, different people, and different approaches to life that need to coexist, to work together and cooperate. Many people in limited space, that they have to compete for space, resources, and influence. A region that produces many developments, religions, wars, crises. A region of tensions, a region full of challenges, a region with great power competition, a very diverse region. How to approach it? What we do have today in this region? First of all, important Arab issues dominate the agenda, like the Palestinian issue. The Arab world is at the threshold of a big transformation, in quest of how to deal with themselves and with Israel, with many developments over the last years, like the Abraham Accords, that have been a major breakthrough, creating a new framework of relations between Israel and many Arab countries. The Arab world is repositioning itself towards Iran, towards Israel, towards other actors in the area. Then we have the major issue of how to guarantee Israel's security. Israel has to remain safe. Then we have Turkey, which is trying to reassert its influence in ways we haven't seen in the recent past. There is no doubt that Turkey is a big country with many resources and many interests. Everybody wants Turkey to be part of the architecture of the region, and I would say firmly anchored to the West, but not at any cost. However, lately we have seen a change in Turkish foreign policy and the way Turkey sees itself from one important influential actor in the region in trying to become the dominant actor in the region, an aspiration that creates problems. This is a region where nobody can become dominant because that will create more problems than it would solve. There has to be a balance of power, a balance of influence, and a balance of interests. Nobody can disrupt the existing balance without expecting to have a major upheaval. Now we have Turkey trying to do that. They are trying to do that with troops on the ground in places like Syria and Libya, with having a military base in the Arab Gulf in Qatar, with hybrid forms of interference in domestic politics of European countries, such as the instrumentalization of illegal immigration, what we call in Greece the weaponization of helpless migrants. And let me talk about immigration a little bit, because this is an issue that fuels populism almost everywhere in the West, and Greece had this issue front and center. In our case, immigration became a big problem back in 2015, when the previous government adopted an open border policy. In 2015, 75% of all illegal immigrants who entered Europe entered through Greece, and that number amounted in about 1 million people. In 2022, that number dropped to 5%, because Greece, the new government, decided to protect its border in a humane manner. And I want to stress that, because the fewer people you have in the sea trying to cross into Greece, the fewer accidents you will have. But let me also make a specific reference to the continuous effort of Turkey to instrumentalize migrants since March 2020, when it actively encouraged and facilitated tens of thousands of desperate people to illegally cross into Greece in order to put pressure on to the European Union. And this blueprint created by Turkey has been used recently in other circumstances, like in the case of Belarus with Poland, but also by Libya with Italy and Malta. Then we have the potential of cooperation in the energy sector. Recent discoveries by Egypt, Israel and Cyprus can offer diversified energy resources to Europe that will help diversify its energy resources and strengthen European energy security, a very high priority in the aftermath of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Let me also make a brief comment on the war in Ukraine. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has highlighted what Greece has been saying for a long time: the value of Eastern Mediterranean for the stability of the entire world, and it showed this value not only in strategic and political terms, but also as far as energy is concerned. Moreover, in the case of Ukraine, Greece stood the ground, despite the fact that we have historical ties to Russia, cultural and religious. We were clear from the beginning. We want to be on the right side of history, but also we don't want to set any precedent in terms of aggressive revisionist powers, thinking that they can expand at the expense of other powers without suffering massive consequences. Finally, we have world instability. Major changes accentuated by the pandemic. The world as we know it is changing. We don't know the direction, and we don't know the final outcome. So, what is Greece's role in the region? First of all, geography. Greece is at the crossroads of 3 continents, serving as a bridge between them. This is a role that Greece has always been playing, and because of that it has created an understanding and a feel for the region that is unparalleled. Second, prominent Greek communities all over this region that have been there for centuries, very much part of the local societies. Greece has no colonial past in the region, despite other powers, when it comes to its history and to the presence of Greek communities. Thirdly, being the oldest NATO and EU member state in the Eastern Mediterranean, Greece bears a special responsibility to promote stability and prosperity in its neighborhood and in Europe. Situated in an area surrounded by crisis, Greece has managed to become a beacon of stability. We have developed solid cooperation formats with like-minded partners like Israel, like Egypt, like the United Arab Emirates, like Saudi Arabia, who share our vision for principles-based international relations. In this context, there are many challenges and question marks about the future. First of all, political, economic, and social repercussions of the pandemic. The insecurity created gives rise to extremism. This is a phenomenon we have seen in Europe as well, not just in the Eastern Mediterranean. But in Europe, we have institutional framework to deal with such phenomena, and we also have economic means to address insecurities and challenges faced by our citizens. This is not the case in many countries in the East Med, and Libya, where I have served twice, is a very prominent case, where after the Arab Spring and the toppling of the Gaddafi regime, the country is in a disarray. It is a failed state with no government controlling the life of ordinary citizens and militia controlling illegal the networks of smuggling people, of smuggling drugs and weapons to Europe. There is no democratic tradition in the majority of the states in the Eastern Mediterranean. There is a different approach on the rule of law and on human rights. For us, for Greece, for Europe, for the United States, human rights, democracy and the rule of law are paramount for stability and prosperity. An important challenge on which Greece plays a major role is how to connect Israel with Europe, and thus providing a security blanket for Israel. The strategic space that Greece provides to Israel is a major component for the long-term security of the region, and of course a major component of Greek foreign policy. Let me highlight the alliance and cooperation that has been forged over the last decade between Greece, the Republic of Cyprus, and Israel, the three liberal democracies of the region, with the support and the active involvement of the United States as well. It started from energy cooperation, but it has expanded to innovation, defense, climate change, disaster response, thus creating a flexible context of cooperation to promote peace, stability, security in the region based on international law, our own values, principles, and our shared interests. The last challenge is to make sure that nobody in the region will use its military forces to bring change that others do not want, or to interfere in domestic politics of any country in the region. This is true about Iran's nuclear threat, but it is also true about Turkey's attempts to disrupt the balance of power and change the status quo in the region by force. So let me make a last comment about Greek-Turkish relations before I conclude. Turkey is an important country, a NATO member, which can be a partner and ally of Greece and the European Union, if it so chooses. But when it comes to Greece, Turkish leadership seems to have a strange fixation. Their language is increasingly bellicose. They threaten that Turkey will come at night if it's so decided. This is the language of an aggressor, not a peacemaker. Look, we want to be able to sit down with Turkey as reasonable adults and resolve our main difference, which is the delimitation of maritime zones in the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean. It is a complicated issue because of the geography of the Aegean, but we have been able to resolve similar problems with our neighbors. We did it with Italy and Egypt, and with Albania we are contemplating taking the issue to the International Court and let the court decide on our behalf, as long as we agree on the playbook. And the playbook is that you resolve your problems according to international law, and in particularly the UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas. You don't provoke, intimidate, or bully your neighbor. Such actions undermine peace and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean at a time when the international community, and especially the West, is faced with a war in Ukraine and needs to be rock solid. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is a reminder that revisionist agendas can lead to destabilization and armed conflict. It is unacceptable that some countries opt for use or threat of use of force instead of peaceful resolution of disputes and respect of international law. The cornerstone of Greek foreign policy is respect for international law and the fundamental principles of UN Charter. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions you might have. Thank you.
All right, so I have read some of the questions, so I will ask one student to pick up the backsliding relations with Turkey. So Sarah, could you come up and bring your question?
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I am a film production major and a junior at LMU. One of my questions was, with the effects, what effects will the approaching elections have with it ultimately determining if Turkey will be a dictatorship or a democracy, have on relations between Turkey and Greece?
Thank you very much for the question. I don't know who of you reads The Economist, but in the latest edition there was a very interesting article about the looming dictatorship that might take place in Turkey. And of course Greece as a neighboring country, but also as part of the West, a NATO member and an EU member state, is very concerned about developments in Turkey. And we have been very concerned about developments in Turkey since 2016, when the Erdogan regime changed its orientation and it became much more authoritarian. So elections in Turkey that will coincide with, actually, they will coincide with elections in Greece that will probably take place this April, are really significant. First of all, elections have to take place, because this is not, as certain as we think right now. A date has been set according to the media. Elections should take place in Turkey on May 14. There seems to be strong opposition against President Erdogan. Six opposition parties have been in close cooperation for at least a year in order to have a single candidate going against President Erdogan. But at the end of the day, it is up to the Turkish people, if they are allowed to vote, to decide the leadership of their country. Greece would like to have a neighbor, Turkey, that is oriented towards the West and to become at some point a member of the European Union. It is actually in our benefit for Turkey to become member of the European Union, because that means that they will adopt the European values and the European principles, meaning respect of human rights and respect for the rule of law. That seems not to be the case. And also good neighborly relations with the neighbors. And Greece is the closest European neighbor to Turkey. So Greece will benefit from having a democratic Turkey, and we are very concerned about the authoritarian turn that Turkey has taken the last couple of years.
Thank you. So a question on Greece's economic turnaround. May I invite Han Ching?
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Yuan Qing, and I'm econ major. And my question is: last year, the European Union, they just ended the fiscal oversight on Greece. And do you think the Greece economy gonna be better, or like be worse off after all? And do you think if the Greek can have a better living standing with the oversight?
Thank you. Well, as I said in the beginning, if we had this discussion a couple of years ago, the context would be the disastrous effects of the financial crisis to the Greek economy and the huge reduction of the Greek GDP. Just as a reminder for those of you that hadn't followed the Greek economic crisis, Greece lost about 25% of its GDP within 2 years, from 2010 to 2012, with disastrous effects on economic but also on a social level, because it affected the social and on a political level, because it affected both the social but also the political life in Greece. It is my opinion that we wouldn't have the rise of the extreme right-wingers, the Golden Dawn Party, if it weren't for the disaster caused by the financial crisis. But the Greek economy has been totally transformed since at least 2017. Despite the pandemic and despite the war in Ukraine, we have recorded very strong growth rates in the last 2 years. The tourism sector is booming, which represents almost 20% of the economy. Greece is actually becoming a very attractive destination for foreign direct investments, and especially foreign direct investments coming from the United States, not only in the tourism sector or the real estate sector, but also in technology, in biotechnology, in logistics, in industry. We are creating again an industrial basis, and this is also an outcome of the pandemic. The pandemic showed to the Western economies, the European economies, and the United States, that outsourcing is not the solution anymore, that globalization has certain limits, and Greece is one of those countries that are benefiting by the repatriation of the industrial bases from countries of Southeast Asia and from China, of course. So we are very optimistic about the forecast of the Greek economy. This year is going to be again a year of growth, despite the negative forecasts for other European countries. And we are expecting that the years to come, and especially if the elections do not destabilize the political system in Greece, we expect that the years to come are going to be years of great growth for Greece, and foreign investors should really look very close to the Greek case and come to invest.
Does anybody have any questions about immigration, about the Golden Dawn right-wing neo-Nazi party and what happened to them? Could I invite students, and because my students have some more questions on energy and Ukraine, but you're also welcome to ask your own questions. Come up and say.
Hello, my name is Aiden. I'm a political science major from Professor Magni's class. I do have a question about the Golden Dawn Party. I think it was in 2015, they were the third largest political party in Greek parliament. And their influence isn't as much anymore. It was in 2020, there was a trial for a lot of their leaders because their criminal charges related to some sort of thing. And their influence isn't as high as it once was. But what do you think right-wing nationalism, populism, what sort of influence do you think that will have on immigration and the future of geopolitical decisions in Greece in the future?
Thank you. Well, as I said before, the Golden Dawn Party, which exists in Greek politics since the 90s, was not actually the product of the rise of illegal immigration, because we had a wave of illegal immigration in the 90s. There were migrants coming from the communist Albania at the time. About 2 million Albanians relocated to Greece in the 90s. Now, of course, they have become, fully fledged Greek citizens. The second generation of these Albanian communities are assimilated to the Greek society. So the Golden Dawn Party was not a product of illegal immigration. It was a product of the financial crisis, and especially of the disenchantment of many Greeks with the Greek political class. So they were trying to find an alternative, looking at the extremes, both to the left of the political spectrum, but also to the right of the political spectrum. So Golden Dawn became a party from 0.1% in the 90s to 6% in 2015. And it became the third largest party. We were very ashamed about that. But, in Greece, as in other countries, like, this country, which is the modern cradle of democracy, there are checks and balances that at some point are used in order to prevent the damage done by these extreme parties to the social fabric and also to the political system. The party has been outlawed. To be more precise, the members of the party have been outlawed because they were tried as members of an organized crime group. So now they are under trial. They are not represented in the parliament because in the last elections in 2019 they got less than 3%, which is the threshold for a party to make it to the Greek parliament. And according to the polls, they are polling less than 3% for the upcoming elections. I think Greece has finished with or some parts of the Greek society have finished with their flirtation with at least the extreme right-wingers. There is no political tradition in Greece of anti-Semitism or of extreme right wing. The Greek society are more center-left leaning than right leaning in the political spectrum, and I believe that the Golden Dawn Party was something that was created because of the financial crisis, and as long as the Greek economy is in a good shape, we won't hear from them anytime soon.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Sam. I'm an English major and I'm the head of the Orthodox Christian Fellowship on campus. I was wondering what your opinion was about the idea of reestablishing diplomatic relations between Greece and Syria, especially considering the dangerously dwindling minority of Syrian Christians, especially Greek Orthodox Christians. Just what your opinion was on the renormalization of that relationship, especially in light of Greece's close ties with Israel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we are not at that point yet, since I believe 2012, Greece, but also the European Union in general, have broken ties with the Assad regime, and we have a representation, a diplomatic representation on a low level in Damascus these days. But we do not plan to re-establish diplomatic relations with Syria as it is today. Of course, this is not going to be just a decision made by the Greek government, because we work in cooperation with the other EU member states. It is going to be a joint decision at some point by the European Union as a whole. But in the time being, we have a low-level diplomatic representation because we have interests there, among others, religious interests in Syria. There is the Patriarchate of Antioch in Syria, and we have a small Greek community still residing there. But we don't plan to re-establish relations with Damascus. Unlike, I have to say here, I have to add, unlike other countries that had invaded Syria in the very recent past, but now that they see that their game didn't bring the results that they were expecting, they are flirting again with the Assad regime that they wanted to topple in the very recent past. And I'm talking about Syria's neighbor in the north that had invaded Syria.
Thank you, Honorable Consul General, for coming. Really appreciate it. My name is Aaron Padilla. I am a senior here at Loyola Marymount University. As you know, there have been flaring tensions of former Yugoslav states in the Balkan region. Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, are having tensions between the Serb population, Bosnians, of course, and there is increased tension between Kosovo and Serbia. Where does Greece find itself in the possibility of reignition of tensions between former Yugoslav countries in this moment?
Thank you very much. Well, Greece has been very active in Western Balkans because we have great interest, political and economic interests in the region. Also, there are cultural affinities with many countries in the region, including Serbia. We are very concerned about the increased tension between Serbia and Kosovo. You have to have the context here, because Serbia is a country that has been left behind as far as its European integration path is concerned, very closely related to Russia. And the Russian invasion of Ukraine creates problems in different parts of the world as well. And the Western Balkans, we feel that might be one of these regions that Russian involvement will be very negative, will try to destabilize the region, so that the attention of the international community can be turned away from Ukraine to other parts of the world. Western Balkans is one such region. North Africa, countries like Libya, is another part of the world that Russian involvement is very negative. What we believe as far as tensions in Western Balkans are concerned is that all countries of the region should have a European future, a European path. And Serbia has to have a European path. They cannot be left behind. We are trying to build up close relations with Kosovo, despite not having formally recognized the state, because of the precedent that this might create as far as the Republic of Cyprus is concerned. So Greece, along with other 4 European states, Spain, Slovakia, I don't remember the other 2. We don't want to officially recognize Kosovo because we are afraid that this might set a bad precedent as far as the Cyprus situation is concerned. But we look very closely, we monitor the situation in the Western Balkans. We are concerned about Russian involvement, but the future of Western Balkans should be within the European Union and not outside of the European Union. There is no future outside of the European Union, and Greece has realized this very clearly during the financial crisis, despite many voices that were talking about Grexit or an alternative path outside of the European Union. The hard reality for the European countries is that the only future, the only bright future for them is to become part of the European Union and to strengthen the cooperation between the European Union states. The European Union is like good health. When you have it, you don't realize it. But when you don't have it, then you say, I want to have good health, and now I'm sick.
Can I ask you to clarify one thing, because you mentioned Cyprus, so I'm not sure if our students know what you're referring to.
Cyprus, yes. Well,
so which part of Cyprus you're afraid that if you recognize Kosovo,
yes.
so just clarify that.
Well,
thank you.
Now, after the war in Ukraine, we are talking about, an invasion of a European country. But actually, there is a European country that has been divided for the last 45 years and has still a divided capital. It's not Berlin, of course, anymore, but it is Nicosia, the capital of the Republic of Cyprus. And the Republic of Cyprus has been invaded in 1974 by the Turkish forces, and has been divided since then. So there is the Republic of Cyprus, which is the southern part of the island, recognized by all members of the international community and a full member of the European Union. And then there is the illegal state of Northern Cyprus, the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, created in 1983, recognized just by one state, Turkey. Nobody else has recognized it. With 40% of its population, people coming from Turkey after 1974. And this is something that cannot go on in the European Union of the 21st century. Unfortunately, not very many people talk about it because people tend to focus on what is fresh in the news. What is fresh in the news these days is the war in Ukraine, and of course, as I said, we stand by the Ukraine because we have experienced an invasion of a Hellenic territory, and Cyprus is very closely, Cypriots and Cyprus is very closely related to Hellenic history and Hellenic tradition. And we feel that this situation has to be resolved. It has to be resolved in a way that benefits both communities, but not in a way that benefits the aggressor and justifies an invasion and an occupation of an independent state. And this is the precedent. We are afraid that a success of Russia in Ukraine might set for future aggressors. That's why we are very happy when we see that the United States and the major countries of the European Union, like Germany, like France, like Italy, stand by Ukraine, and they don't just stand by Ukraine rhetorically, but they stand by Ukraine militarily as well.
Can I ask one more question? I'll invite the student about the energy crisis in Ukraine.
Yes.
So, Kieran?
Yeah, so I was wondering, with the current energy crisis that's going on in Ukraine, you've seen Germany resort to burning fossil fuels, France moving back to nuclear power. I was reading an article that Dr. Z gave to us that Greece is considering building a submarine pipeline to transfer energy. Do you see this being a viable option for the Greek economy and its recovery? And also with the creation of such a project, how would you source the labor as well as avoid overreach from third-party financiers from the Middle East or wherever it may be?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, energy diversification and energy security is of the highest priority these days in Europe. Of course, this discussion in Europe, but also in the US, had started a long time ago. But unfortunately, leaderships of certain European Union countries didn't realize that the over-dependence on Russian oil and Russian natural gas might keep them hostile and not allow them to make rational and free decisions as far as their sovereignty is concerned. Of course, everything changed after the Russian invasion in the Ukraine. I remember that during the Trump administration there was a lot of talk and dispute between the United States and Germany regarding the construction of Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would connect Russia with Germany and bring Russian energy resources to the German market. Of course, it was very cheap energy, and it made sense from an economic point of view. But international relations, as those of you that study international relations know, that it is not just about the economy, but it is also about politics. And in Europe, we realized that we cannot depend, and we shouldn't depend on Russian cheap energy. And now we are trying to diversify our energy resources. Actually, this is this is a role that Greece can play a constructive role. First of all, because Greece is building LNG facilities in central Greece, but also in northern Greece, in the port of Alexandroupolis, in cooperation with the United States. This is actually a big project financed and supported by the United States. And the idea is to bring LNG from the United States, and through the interconnectors that start from northern Greece and go to Eastern and Central Europe, through Bulgaria and Romania, and then through Serbia, Bulgaria, Serbia, Hungary. The European Union, many countries of the European Union, can diversify their energy resources by LNG coming from the United States. So this is a win-win situation for both sides of the Atlantic. Another project that Greece, in cooperation with the Republic of Cyprus and Israel, are promoting for many years is the East Med pipeline, a pipeline that will utilize the natural gas resources that have been discovered both in Israel and in the Republic of Cyprus, thus creating a pipeline that will start from Cyprus, it will go to southern Greece, and it will end up in Italy. A couple of years ago, this was an idea just on paper, because many companies said that it didn't make any commercial sense. But the energy prices have skyrocketed because of the war of Ukraine, and there is great political interest to try to find alternative energy resources other than Russian gas. So now this idea is back on the table. Another idea is to connect Egypt with Europe, and this is going to be again through Greece. So our approach is that Greece has the geopolitical capacity to become an energy hub for both alternative energy resources that have been discovered in Eastern Mediterranean, but also for LNG coming from the United States. And this is what we try to showcase after the war in Ukraine. And we have the support of the US and other important partners in that. And also we have the commitment for these projects to be financed by the European Union.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you all the audience for being here. And since all good Greek things ends with a celebration, you are all welcome to participate in the Greek fiesta laid out at the back. So thank you, and please come and talk to the consul.
Thank you very much. Thank you.